Oh, hello. This is WKCE Radio with Sarah Saleh, and today we are answering Unit 7 exam questions for the Unit 7 exam, I guess. Let's start with the first question being, why did the Cold War begin between 1945 and 1949? Talk about general issues and specific events in Europe and Asia. Well, let's start, I guess. The alliance between the United States and the Soviet Union had brought victory in World War II. Wartime cooperation meant glossing over many serious differences between the two. Since the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917, Soviet leaders had been claiming that communism and capitalism would never peacefully coexist. Beginning the 1930s, Joseph Stalin had tried to reach some sort of understanding with the West, but only because he viewed Nazi Germany as a common threat. Indeed, after concluding that the West was not interested in working with him, he made his own agreement with Hitler in 1939. That agreement, of course, was quickly forgotten after the German invasion of Soviet Union 2 years later. After the United States entered the war in December 1941, the administration began encouraging Americans to view the Soviet Union not as a threat, but rather as an ally, both for victory over the Axis and for maintaining peace in the post-war world. Meaning after the war, when they expect to win, of course, when they win, they want to keep being peaceful with the Soviet Union and, stay friends. This message being hammered home using many forms of propaganda from 1942 to 1945 meant that after the war, Americans would be in for a rude shock. Agreements regarding the post-war world were reached at Yalta and Potsdam, but the Soviets wasted no time in violating them. After driving German forces out of Eastern Europe, they set out about creating communist puppet states throughout the region, apparently ignoring their promises to allow democratic elections there. Having just won a world war, they seem intent on starting another one. To the new administration of Harry Truman, this behavior was reminiscent of Hitler's in the 1930s. Like many of the statesmen of his age, he believed that the proper means of responding to an international bully was an incredible threat of force. Thus, Truman decided to create a strategy known as containment, in which the Soviets would be prevented or contained within, of course, the Soviet Union, using propaganda once again and maybe weapons to protect free peoples from communism. The Truman Doctrine was a new idea. It was new. Oh God. Cut this part out. I can't cut it out. Dang it. Oh well. In which the Soviets would be prevented militarily, if necessary, from using force to export their ideology abroad. Containment would in fact remain the cornerstone of the U.S. foreign policy for the next 50 years. Containment assumed many different forms. Under the Truman Doctrine, the president pledged to defend the free peoples everywhere through economic and military aid. The Marshall Plan provided billions of dollars for economic recovery to Western Europe. Less misery in France, Germany, and Italy led to communism and communist electoral victories in those countries. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, was a formal military alliance created as a clear message to Moscow that the United States would fight to defend Western Europe. Ultimately, it would lead to an actual war in Korea. Containment was not without its critics, and among the most precipitative was journalist Walter Lippmann. Lippmann believed that the result would be an ongoing Cold War that might never involve the actual combat, but would continue to drain American resources, meaning money, metals, tactics and plans, to all in one cause. And that cause would be committed to resisting communism everywhere it might appear. And indeed, Cold War was exactly the term that was come to define the entire period from 1945 to 1989. Thus, the Cold War started. Or was there, I guess.